Greetings and salutations. You're listening to the Into the North podcast, where we take a look at the competitive side of the Commander format, also known as CDH. I am Reed, aka Sick Robot, and today I'm joined by Morgan, aka Spleenface.
What's up, everyone?
And in this episode, we're going to be covering Game Changers. Oh yeah. We are back just in time for Wizards of the Coast to drop the beta edition of the Commander Brackets concept that we actually talked about previous episode. So you can go check out our previews and our sort of predictions for what this is going to look like however many months ago at this point. Don't mention it. But before we get into that, yeah, I guess we should mention it. Where have we been? That's a great question. I think... I don't know. I guess how do we answer this one? We probably should have put a bit of time into this in pre-show, but I think it's really just life's been busy.
Yeah, life's been busy. We're dedicating some of our time to practicing for the tournament that we're gonna talk about in a bit that we went to. Plus, just I think it's been in the lull following the flurry of activity that we got at the end of the summer, beginning of the fall. It just sort of felt like I feel like the motivation or the feeling that I had stuff to talk about was at a historic low.
Yep. Definitely same. I definitely have a bit less to talk about these days in the context of the format. I think the lack of sort of broad, large scale activity and news and stuff definitely affected that.
Although it's funny, I feel like if you go through our history, there's like a bunch of tentative hey, we should probably record, and then just
yeah, just hard to make it come together. But we did.
Were in our hearts and on our minds, even while we were away,
constantly.
What I'm trying to say.
Honestly, constant anxiety about not putting it in an episode. It's like when you wake up in the middle of the night in a cold sweat because you think you're in the middle of an exam. it's like that, except
and you
for
forgot
podcast.
pants, and it's like,
yeah, and you forgot pants. I wake up, cold sweat, middle of flop sweat, middle of the night. We don't have show notes. Wait, we never have show notes. Yeah. So that's about where we've been at. I think we do have okay, a couple of things. Did miss our New Year's episode this year. We might get a belated one. We'll see. I'm not gonna put any big
I'm
not gonna put any hopes riding on that one, but I think it would be very funny if we put one out halfway through this year. That'd be good. Might commit to that.
I'm kind of okay just not recapping this year,
yeah, that's also fair.
I feel like it's not good content. There's the ban list nonsense that I feel like I've already talked about a lot, and then next to that it feels like nothing mattered.
Yep, pretty much. Cool, and then we do have our 100th episode coming up next up, which is a bit of pressure. I think we might have to get the crew back together for that one. We'll see if that can be our that might just be our replacement for the New Year's episode this year. We'll see. So keep an eye out on that one again.
In review, let's go.
No plans. Hell yeah, brother. Semi-decennial? What do you call it? What's a centennial but for decades?
I'm not sure.
How could you? You're my personal dictionary. How could you possibly fail me on this one? God. Useless. All right. Where are we going? Where are we going in the future? We're doing, I'm not quite sure yet, as you might be able to tell. We're sort of still figuring this stuff out. We're
gonna record monthly. At least.
We will be recording. We'll see about it if it's going to be monthly consistently, but we will try to put out at least
an episode
out a month or so. Yeah, around there. We're sort of pulling back on our tighter schedule of 2 a month. We'll try to average around 1 a month for the foreseeable future. So keep an eye out for those ones. Feel free to poke us if you're getting a bit impatient, although not all at once, please. Line up, get in a queue. And then we'll space out a bit.
Yeah, make sure you poke at just the long enough interval, give it like 3 or 4 minutes so you can relax again, and then the next podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. So that's about where we're at, what we're doing. We'll update when we have more details at some point. It might just be we give you more details every time we record, because again, we haven't really figured it out either. But we're back-ish. Cool. And then the last little pre-show thing that we did want to talk about a bit was we didn't get to do a recap of our recent trip over to Boston. And I have to very specifically say over, because it's not really down from us.
No, it's really not. Is it in fact up, or is it like just across?
No. I think there's like. Actually, it might be. Okay, we're gonna do this now. We're getting far more rambly and tangential in our old age, and actually, I'm here for it. No, it is still south of us, but like not really by that much. I gotta call it over. It's definitely.
It's primarily over, but it is material.
Southeast, okay. East, or whatever. East, south.
Luckily, the Bostonians can't knock our claim to being the North.
Yeah, them specifically not. I'm not sure that we've ever interacted with any main CDH players, but I think they might have the claim on us.
I mean,
also Seattleites somehow.
Yeah, the Seattleites have us beat.
Minnesotans.
They have a current like a Gulf Stream that means that they're
it's the
Montanans, though. I think actually the Mystic Remoras just had their sort of farewell stream.
Yeah, their farewell. They're sending off. I tuned in for a bit on that one. It was that one was that was a shock that I didn't really feel like I wanted to think about when they did that one, because there were a lot of memories tied up to showing up on those streams and stuff.
I feel like they were mostly just formalizing, like,
Yeah, no, which is fair. It sort of drew to stark contrast, sort of our level of involvement.
Yeah.
So I was just like, okay,
felt a little called out.
Yeah. Yeah. So we did a trip down to the King's Court. Oh, what was it like an 8K or something? I don't even remember what the prizing was. Something like that. 8K. There you go. Got it right on first try. Out in wasn't
the Confidence
Worcester? It was in Providence, right? Yeah, sort of.
I forget. The last one was in Taunton, but I don't remember exactly what this one was.
It was definitely not Taunton this time. I think it was Providence, or somewhere in that area. Anyway, great time, dude. Oh my god, King's Court just puts on the best events, I think.
It was a good time. Good people.
Yep, we shacked up in an Airbnb of like 8 people. Great to get sort of a
that Airbnb
memories of like GP grinding days that none of us were ever involved in, but that there's you get the osmosis through.
Hey, I community. Slummed it at single GP.
Yeah, but just great time, bunch of great friends. Really nice to be able to see all the Boston crew and and Ian and all those people, everybody down there. I will say thanks to everybody for coming out and doing that stuff. We had a real big I think it was like 40 people. I felt so bad. We walked into this Brazilian steakhouse in the middle of nowhere. I think they closed like an hour and a half or something after we were being seated, and it was just like, yeah, okay, we're just gonna like walk like half of the tournament into this venue like an hour and a half before they close. It wasn't just like we didn't just show up spontaneously. There was a reservation. It just still felt weird.
Honestly, I felt less bad for them that I did. Was it? Oh, it was one of the like sports bars. I feel like I forget which one in at Punt City, where like we showed up with 15 people, and then they were like, okay, I guess we can rearrange our entire dining room to seat 15 people together, and then like 4 more people showed up, and they're like, I guess we can pull up one more table, and then 4 more people showed up, and they were just like, fuck this, we quit.
Yeah, and then I guess in terms of actual Magic that weekend, because that's probably something that we should talk about as well. I think did we have 3 people from the Airbnb made top 16? 4? I think it was at one. It was at least 2. There's at least 2.
So yeah,
I think it was 3. Anyway,
confess I don't remember.
Some
I'm
good stuff.
Slipping, honestly.
Yeah, dude, this is actually why I need to do the podcast more, because I need to keep your fucking dictionary brain sharp, so I don't have to do any more of the thinking. It's a completely selfish behavior. Yeah, it's great. So me and Morgan,
nothing less.
Of course, with the resurgence of TNT, we can't not bring the deck. So we both ended up bringing versions of Devoted Druid mid-range stuff, as you do, as is the fashion right now. But, with some spice. Both brought Razakeths in the deck as well, because, it's pretty sick. Works with Hazel's Brewmaster. That deck it feels very good to play now. Historically, I haven't really liked, the layered versions of TNT. They've always sort of felt clunky to me. This one has felt very different. It's felt very cohesive. All the pieces sort of do exactly what you need them to be doing, and they're very flexible.
Yeah, the Brewmaster ties
the whole room together.
Having a backup win con that doesn't just feel like shit is
exactly.
so nice.
And also, it's just a disgusting mid-range piece for no reason. Turns out, just making a Mox Emerald every turn is sort of gross on a 3/4 Menace attacker and a Tymna deck. And then also, sometimes you put a Bloom Tender under it and you're making a Bloom Tender every turn or whatever. It's just gross. Razor Captains, etc. All that stuff. Yeah, so that deck was fun. Neither of us did particularly well. We did fine, I think. We both, day 2'd. We were bubbling for a bit there, but, there's a bit of luck issue, I think. Just getting varianced.
Definitely did not have good seeding, and I did went up in 69th place, which if you're outside of the top 16, I think is that's the best you can
single
do.
Best. Yeah, unless you're at a 500 person event, then I think you probably get beat out by 420 because it's a bit harder to really lock in on getting that one, I think.
Wait, hang on a second. Something doesn't make sense here because I don't know what's going on. Anyways, the standings are a little weird. But
I thought you were pulling this off top of the head. Oh my god, he's looking at the bracket. How dare
I'm looking
you?
at the bracket, and I, with 1 win and 4 draws, am somehow behind someone with 1 win and 0 draws.
Hilarious. Get
breakers.
breakers.
Maybe buys aren't showing up as wins. I don't know. Whatever.
Sure.
Yeah, unfortunately, so a couple of the rounds went to time, just the most mid-range of mid-range decks, and then I had 2 rounds that were the classic, the thing we can all blame. It's 100% Reed's fault, no one else. We got into a situation where I could king make someone, or someone could king make someone else, and so we agreed to a draw.
I really did let the genie out of the bottle on that one, huh? So sorry about that, CDH community. My bad. I actually, you know what? I will share at least part of the blame with River, because River proposed it. River may cry, for the record. Classic, but yeah. Yeah, I don't think that one's ever going away until we get significant tournament structure changes and such, but and then it's good. I also ended up with I don't know, a win, 2 losses, and 3 draws or something like that. Wait, is it 7 round or 6 round? 7 round, right?
It was 7, but I think we both dropped after 6.
We both dropped after 6, after feeling the bubble. But yeah, it was fine. Weirdly enough, I felt like I was talking to Alan about this when he was doing interviews, but I was I still maintain it now. I don't think any of the draws are really my fault. You would expect the TNT deck to just be okay, well, we're just gonna play control because I can't win and go to the end of the game. But really, basically every game, either I would have lost if I wasn't playing TNT, and I managed to get a draw out of a position where you just probably aren't winning that with most decks. And then the rest of them, I was actively pushing for wins, and it was just the rest of the table had it. One of them was I was actively pushing for a win early. The rest of the table had what is it? Curse Totem, Orcish Bowmasters, Agatha's Soul Cauldron.
Oof.
And I'm just like, yeah, well, like, okay, like, what am I supposed to do here? I guess we got close to time. I was a turn away from hardcasting a Razaketh and then beating people to death with an 8/8 Flampler, but, time.
Yeah, one of my draws was literally, I don't know why we didn't do this. I sat down with a bunch of people I knew, all 4 of us playing mid-range decks, and it's round 2, and I literally, I think 3 out of 4 of us were like, we could just draw and go get lunch. This game
fair.
is ending in a draw.
I know all of you. We're all competent players. We're all playing mid-range decks. This is not happening.
I made a solid attempt. I think there was like one misplay that I had the opportunity to swift wreck my Bowmaster in response to somebody else's Bowmaster, and I didn't.
Nice.
And so I wound up losing it, and maybe if I'd had it, I could have used it to force. I think I needed to start forcing players out of the game. That was my road to win, because I did have a lead, but not like an insurmountable one. So if I just beat someone to death and force them to spend resources on that might have been the line. But I honestly I don't know that I would have had the time to do it. Yeah, and then my first round was a draw that I managed to pull off, showing an endurance to a consult player who it was Final Fortune after Tivit activated Time Sieve, and then they went for a
gross.
Ranger Captain protected Oracle Consult, and I was like, I have an endurance. Do we draw? And I think I was going 4th, and I mulled to 3.
Oh, so you are part of the problem. Okay, I see it.
Sorry,
I'm being blamed here, and yet you're part of the problem.
You let the genie out. Let the cat out of the bag. The genie out of the.
I don't blame you. Take your point. Take your points where you can get them.
Especially mulling, so there's a multiform.
Yeah.
Last, I think
Multiform going last.
I'll
Dude,
take this.
drag a draw out of that wherever you can get. All right, I'll tell my last tournament story, and then we can sort of wrap up the Boston trip. But I do want to comment on a couple more things, just not my run. My win, for what it's worth, was at a table where I was seat 4 and seats 1 and 2 were Roxai. That was the game I won. just completely gross. I think it ended up being, I kept a what was it? I kept a it was like a Sol Ring Carpet hand with a, was it? No, it wasn't Sol Ring. I think it was just Carpet Smothering Tithe was basically the entirety of the gas in the hand. And then I played Carpet. I did something with the mana. I think there might have been a Dork in there as well, something like that. Played Carpet, got them off the mana, and then one of the Rockside players played a second island. And I was just like, oh yeah, go on, off the top. And then I drew a fish off the top, and then I turned to you, cast Mothering Tithe Fish.
Nice. Sorry, before I'm accused
and it was gross.
Fake news, I was going 3rd in that round 1 game.
There you go. 3rd in multiple. There you go. Anyway, I think I still haven't lost to Roxai tournament for years now. Somehow managed to keep that streak going. Cool. Unless you have other stories and stuff, but I did want to shout out a couple of people. Ring was in our Airbnb, and Ring made believe she made top 4, right?
Yeah.
Ring 13, there you go. So congrats.
Glasses
Deck
of
was
Urza,
hot, yeah.
Like
Playing Glasses of Urza. What a spicy inclusion. Gotta love that one. I would never play it personally, and I don't even think it's necessarily a bravery thing, although it might be. I just don't think it's that good, but you know what? Good on her. It was well navigated. Turns out, I mean, I guess the actual answer is that if you think Gitaxian Probe is good, then surely Glasses of Urza is good, right?
True. It's better. It doesn't trigger Bowmaster. Got him.
Yeah, exactly. And then Boston native, Boston local upset Zach, just absolutely crushing it through the tournament. I think he might have. He made top 16, right?
No.
Did he bubble? Yeah, just couldn't get there.
Yeah, he was. I think he thought he was No, I guess he bubbled.
Yeah, which is just a bit brutal. I think lost out on some shitty breakers, but almost made top 16 playing Lumra, which is the mono green bear that mills cards and puts lands back into play from your bin. Just sick. Just, oh my god, I love that deck. It's so awesome. Spoiler / like full disclosure, I've been playing effectively a Lumra combo deck in mid power recently, which might affect my love for that card, but it is a sick card. You can't deny that. And the combos that it puts together are just like awesome.
Look, the first Lumra is sick.
but you need to do it, dude. Okay, no, you actually can't say that because part of the second Lumra in that deck is Command fucking Beacon. It's so sick that part of the, like, an active part of the infinite combo is a Command Beacon in the deck. That's awesome.
Throwback to Food Chain Titania.
Correct. What about? I think that was the actual. I think that was the first CDH deck that I actually built myself. For what it's worth.
Christ.
CDH Titania. I don't think I ever actually like built it. I think I played it on Trice like twice and then moved on to Greener Pastures, but that's some deep lore that I don't think even Morgan knew.
I mean, is it possible for Food Chain Titania to be the first CDH deck someone built?
Probably, like, certainly, right? It has a real win con. Quote unquote real. I wouldn't say it's like fully real, but anyway. Yeah, so would highly recommend. King's Court events, always great. Boston Crew, fantastic. Love y'all. Everybody else that came out and we saw and got to talk to. Big thumbs up. Great time. We also got a couple of cube drafts in that weekend, because I'm an addict. And I will always push for it, but they were sick.
I think my favorite was the one where we drafted a super powered vintage cube and then all just laid out our decks and went, nice. I think I could beat that now.
So I tapped out before that one because I was just like, I'm done for the weekend. But it was very funny to hear the recollection of that one after.
No,
like,
so
yes, we're just gonna do the fun part of drafting.
Yeah, who wants to play games? I think it was Nick joking whose cube it was, drafted just like the most disgusting control deck. Was just like, I have all the counter spells and interaction a person could ever need, like none of you are ever getting past me. And then I was like, but I have like aggressive mid-range red-white deck with the conspiracy that makes your first creature spell each turn cost 1 less. He was like,
yeah.
Oh, I don't think I can beat that.
Was there also one person with an Urza Saga that Nick probably couldn't beat? Like, he just like straight up didn't have. Okay, just had enough. Yeah,
for 2 constructs.
Yeah, just not to
like,
keep up with like
I have a
discounted
Hymn
power
of the
glyphs and
Wild.
stuff. Yeah,
I have a Hymn of the Wild and a very aggressive red-white curve that starts at 2. Like. Turn 1.
All right.
Inty. Let's go.
Just gross. Turn 1. Fucking Emperor of Bones. Get in there. Love that card. Anyway, I'm not gonna. This might. Okay, I won't lie. There might be more cube content in these episodes going forward than there have been historically. I hope you're in for it. But also, we will still be talking CDH, and I'm going to cut over the topics now so that we don't keep stringing people along for a bit too long here.
The OGs remember the 2v2 content, though.
Oh, absolutely. Actually, I want everybody listening to this who has been with us for a while or a bit, or has listened to some of our backlog, to give us a ranking of the... Yeah, there you go. Thank you, first of all, but also I want a personal ranking of your opinions of the alt topics for all these episodes. So like 2v2, and Magic Online Vintage Cube, real life travel, real life cube, etc. Just like anything that you can come up with. I want your ranking. All right. moving on to the actual topic. Yeah, bracketing. So I guess we'll just link the resources and stuff in the description for this episode. We're not going to read through the entire like justification and everything for all of this stuff, but we'll give the general breakdown of at least the graphic that they put out, and then we'll sort of talk about it a bit. So the bracket concept, the commander brackets concept, is basically just a way of ranking / evaluating decks, officially coming out of Wizards of the Coast, who now runs the format. The idea is basically to get to a better place than the out of 10 ranking system, because as we all know, every EDH deck ever put together is a 7. Every single one has always been a 7 and will never not be a 7, and that's sort of a problem. It's a bit rough when people playing like basically inside joke, this is gonna be great. When somebody playing like basically just depowered Yisan with like missing exactly a guy's cradle shows up and is like, yeah, this is a 7, and some fast mana, and then shows up and is like, yeah, this is a 7, and then somebody who's playing Chair Tribal shows up and is like, yeah, this is a 7, and they play in the same pod. That sucks. It's not a good experience. So, this has been something that the community has been trying to solve in sort of vague, probably like not super good ways for years, decades even. But Wizards is sort of putting into legwork here to try to get a system out the other end that's like decent. So, what is the bracket system? The idea is that instead of doing it out of 10 rating, the core idea here is that 10 power levels is too much for the average person to rate, and it's too granular, and there's not a good enough idea of what being in each of those power level segments actually means. So, basically what Wizards has done is they've narrowed it down into a smaller number of quote-unquote brackets, tiers, whatever you want to call them, that have a bit more better definition on what actually should exist within those tiers, those brackets. So, what they come up with? They come up with 5 brackets, count them 5. They are called, from lowest power to highest power, Exhibition, Core, Upgraded, Optimized, and CDH. We'll sort of get into discussion about this in a second, but the general idea here is that bracket 1, Exhibition, is an ultra casual commander deck. So the restrictions they put on here are no mass land denial or extra turns, no 2-card infinite combos, no game changers, we'll get into what those mean in a bit, and few tutors. Tutors meaning non-land tutors, so cultivates and your rampant growth and stuff don't count as tutors. Number 2, bracket 2, is Core, which is the average current pre-constructed deck. So the restrictions on this one are basically all the ones that are previous, except for the difference that instead of no extra turns period, there's just no chaining extra turns. So no like linking a bunch of extra turns together to take like 5 turns in a row. You just only get one at a time, basically. Then we have bracket 3, which is upgraded beyond the strength of an average precon deck. The restrictions here are still no mass land denial, no chaining extra turns still, regular extra turns are fine. Late game 2-card infinite combos are okay, but we shouldn't be trying to go for those like ASAP, and you get up to 3 game changers. Then we have bracket 4.
Specified, there's a longer paragraph to these that we won't read out. They specified that you should not be pulling out any of your 2-card infinite combos before turn 6, I think was what they said.
Yeah. Then bracket 4 is optimized. High power commander, it's time to go wild. No restrictions effectively other than the ban list. And then bracket 5 is CDH, which is same, no restrictions, except it's CDH as we all know and love it. So, what are game changers? Game changers are a curated-ish list of cards that they have come up with, that are basically just power cards for all the colors that are indications of things that aren't banned, but things that are indications of higher level play effectively. We can read through some of them. We didn't actually talk about this. Do you want to read through the entire list, or you just want to give?
We definitely don't have to read through the entire list. Let's give so
but
White has
Drannith
Magistrate, Enlightened Tutor, Sarah's Sanctum, Smothering Tithe. Blue's got some free interaction, Psych Rift,
Expropriate. that kind of stuff. Yeah,
Mystical
Rule 678.
Tutor, like all the best tutors, although perplexingly not Worldly Tutor, are on this list.
Or Gamble.
Stuff like
Yeah,
Underworld. I feel like Gamble's worse than the other ones, but
yeah, that's fair.
stuff like Underworld Breach, Bolus of
Cradle,
Citadel, ad nauseum. And then they have 4 multicolor legendaries, which are Kinnan, Yuriko, Winota, and Grand Arbiter Augustin the Fourth. And then a bunch of colorless fast mana. And
a couple of stacks effects, so like Tabernacle, Trinosphere, Glacial Chasm, etc. So, like power cards. A lot of these are what it's sort of, this list is sort of a combination of what we would consider CDH staples, and then also just like the
most miserable cards in casual.
Yeah, exactly. There's a combination of those two. So yeah, that's sort of where we're at in terms of what they published. I haven't really been keeping up with the general community's sentiment on this stuff. Maybe we probably should have done a bit of research ahead of time, but that's fine. We'll give our opinions on it.
I feel like in the CDH community, all I was seeing was people talking about how to break the lower power levels.
Yeah, no, that's also fair, because a lot of this is
just saying this at the outlay, or like at the outset, that's fine if you want to do that. If you go to an uncontrolled environment where people are restricted into playing a tier, like a tier 3 deck with your maximally optimized tier 3 or upgraded level 3 deck, whatever we're calling it, bracket 3, you're an asshole.
Yeah, that is just pub stomping. You're still pub stomping. The idea of this is to like help solve matchmaking issues. This is not like, there's no ranking system that is going to get rid of pub stompers, because there's always going to be corner cases. It's just like that's just how it is. The goal
with this was to
that's not what we're solving here.
Expectations, not like not create new formats.
Yeah, exactly. And the idea here is basically, again, like Morgan said, an alignment of expectations and making matchmaking between people with a bunch of decks and different people who've never played before easier, sort of facilitating that, getting rid of some of the friction of like, the pregame talks of having to talk through like a bunch of cards and strategies and telling people what your deck does. Now, the idea is that you can just say, I play like bracket 3. This is like a deck is like a bracket 3 deck. And then you can sort of match up and down a bracket relatively comfortably, effectively. So, what do we think of it? I would talk first, although Morgan, I think you have like, I don't know.
Yeah.
You have some stuff, I have some stuff.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, this is a beta, and they do say in their article, this is a beta, we're looking for feedback. I feel like I think we discussed this and we both agreed that it feels a little bit underdeveloped. I don't want to speculate too much. I wonder if they sort of agreed on some stuff and then didn't agree on other stuff and wound up like putting this out as maybe a compromise. But when you're looking at it from a casual perspective, the problem you're trying to solve is, as we said, the every deck is a 7 problem. And I think now every deck is a 3, and brackets 1 and 2 have sliced off maybe about the bottom 20% of decks, or maybe a little less. Which is that is an improvement, but I think they probably could have done better. They could have done more if core was level 1 and then there was something like maybe you bump the lower threshold of upgraded up a bit and insert something in the middle there, because I think when they talk about exhibition, which is like you're not actually trying to win, I think the people who build decks that are legitimately not trying to win are trying to do like some funny thing where they like assemble the Last Supper out of card art or whatever. Those people are okay not winning, and it's not actually a problem if they're getting match made at, say, like a Magic Fest against people playing precons.
Yeah.
Like, you know what you're signing up for if you deliberately build a deck that's meaningfully worse than a precon.
Well, so for what it's worth, they did say again, like one of the things that they said, at least on the live stream that I watched some of, was the idea is that you should be able to match up and down a bracket relatively comfortably. Or they're like, that's like, it's not going to be in completely dynamic breaking. So like ones should be able to match with, like, you can like broadly match ones with twos, and it's not going to be like the worst experience ever. You just don't want to go further out. Like, you don't want to match a one with a three with like a CDH deck or whatever, like that kind of stuff. Two with a four. I'm
that seems
skeptical.
That seems wrong.
Yeah, I'm skeptical that that's the case. I don't know. I other people might have different tolerances for power level differences, but I think that's like there's probably a bit too much room in terms of like the top of three and the bottom of two for that to be the case, which I think is probably like usually where the mismatches are going to end up the most, is like bottom of two trying to match with top of three ish in that case. But yeah, I think I'll hop in on the sort of the tiering stuff, because this is some of the complaints that I had as well. I think it's not really just even one for me. It's sort of like I'll get out, I guess, like all of my complaints at once here, with the actual like structuring and how many tiers and what tiers there are, which is that, yeah, I definitely agree that like one probably doesn't need to be its own tier in my opinion. I don't think there are an actual, at this point in the Commander like life cycle, we're like 20 years in or something.
Yeah, this
More
is not
than
a new game, and it's been hugely popular for a decade.
Yeah, and it's been very power crept to the point where like modern Commander does not really even resemble Commander from 10 years ago that much. There are just like way more good cards that do the thing that you want your deck to do, that are like very aligned with how your deck functions. You're not really cobbling together these sort of janky decks around a commander out of a bunch of cards that like weren't really intended to go with that commander, but like you're trying to make them work. A lot more decks these days, especially for people just getting into the format, are like, here's the commander, it does this thing. They printed a back catalog of about 500 cards that do that thing really well. I'm just gonna pick and choose from among those and throw in some rampant interaction and stuff, right?
Yeah,
like
and
that's like, a lot closer to what current deck building looks like.
Also, EDHREC like exists now.
Yeah, exactly. There are resources to go figure out all this stuff. All this to say, I think one is like a sort of a fake bracket in terms of matchmaking, where I think it's a lot more like, this would probably be like a bracket 0 in my opinion, where it's like, this isn't really a real bracket, but it's a bracket. It's like a type of deck building that exists and should be acknowledged, but it doesn't really come into play for matchmaking that much, or realistically could be rolled into the low end of 2 if you really wanted to do that, just with the qualifier of like, these decks are not actively attempting to win the game.
Yeah, I also just like from a pure like, I don't know, signaling perspective, I just think it's like kind of unreasonable to create the expectation that it could ever be reasonable for someone to be upset about a power level mismatch after losing to a precon.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like, and that's sort of the idea, is that like, in my opinion, the precons are sort of just like the ground floor of power level in EDH. It's because it's the most accessible power level to everybody. Anybody can go out and buy a precon and play the precon. So like, that to me feels very much like the absolute base. This is the power level if you're trying to win the game at all. And this is what you can aspire to. And like, you have this reference stuff in official packaging that you can go buy to build your own decks against, right? And if you build decks that are weaker than pre-constructed decks and you're still trying to win, that's fine. It's just that like, you have the context. You can play these against precons that other people are playing and get an idea of how strong the deck is and understand that. So like, I think that should probably be moved down one. And then on the other end, I also sort of have an issue with the difference between 4 and 5 on here. There are some arguments in terms of like people talking about, yeah, well, if you don't have the difference between 4 and 5, people are just going to pub stomp because they're just going to be like, well, I'm not playing CDH, and like, if we combine them and 4 is just the CDH bracket now, it's like, okay, well, I'm not playing CDH, I'm not a 4, I'm going to play in 3, except they're playing like super high power, like everything, just not like actual CDH decks. Where really what I think is sort of like more reasonable is you just sort of stop after 4. 4 is still optimized. It's not CDH. And then you just sort of have CDH as a, yeah, like CDH is a mindset inside of bracket 4 rather than like a separated bracket entirely. And honestly, the reason for that, for me at least, is to open up space to subdivide bracket 3 more. Because the issue here that I think we both have as well, Morgan, is that bracket 3 is just the new 7 out of 10. Everything is going to be a 3.
I think
there's just there's not enough differentiation in that bracket.
I think it slices off the bottom like 20% of people who were playing precons, and then it like creates it basically calls people out for pub stomp a little bit.
Yeah.
For like really deliberately building decks that are far stronger than what they are like expecting to play against. And so like maybe it slices off the top like 10%. But it feels like they could have done something to sort of like we're still left with something like 70% in the middle. This is just to be clear, this is assuming that like CEDH is just its own separate thing, not like counting it in the percentage of the people who are playing casual commanders. Of the people who are playing like casual commander, the bottom 20% have been moved into their own little bracket. The top 10% have, or the middle 70% have been protected from the top 10%.
Yeah.
But like there's still room for, even without like deliberately building to break level 3, there's still like we play a lot of level 3 decks that I think we could improve a lot while staying within the bounds of level 3 that would thrash precons.
And with thrash, even the bottom 25% or the bottom, even maybe the bottom 50% of 3, like the decks are like, they're not 4s. There's a lot of pet cards in them. There's a lot of just like strategies that are optimal but are like sort of flavorful or fun to play with or whatever. But they're still like
very unoptimized mana bases and like
tutors. For example, like I specifically built like I have a Boros Jolly Balloon Man deck that I play in this sort of meta. It does not tutor at all because I don't like when decks have to tutor, and the mana base is like very budgetized and slimmed down. There aren't fetches. There are some tap lands in there, like all that kind of stuff. And I think that deck would still do pretty significantly well against the bottom half of 3.
And you cut a couple pieces for comboing too.
Yeah, and I cut like a bunch of the combos out of the deck because they were just like not fun to like be playing with. Like there's no, if people know Jolly Balloon Man combos, like there's no like Village Bell Ringer, Coercive Recruiter, like that stuff in the deck. But like even that one, which I think is probably closer to the bottom end of our play group in terms of power levels, in like some ways. Like, even that thing would just, like, I'm not sure that I'd be comfortable bringing that out to, like, just regular play nights. Maybe?
No, yeah.
It's like...
I wouldn't play it in my first game with strangers.
Exactly.
I'd play, like, a
work up to
deck,
it, but...
And then, like, if they had, like, decent decks... Like, if they were average or above, then maybe you could break it out and be like, hey, this one's strong, letting you know, but, it's disruptible, whatever. But like, yeah, if you ran that into people who were playing like below average power level decks, it would be a bad time.
Yeah. Anyway, all that to say, we have personal experience of like just how wide bracket 3 is actually going to be, and that like that is a problem, right? Because like a lot of the matchmaking issues aren't even necessarily like, yeah, pub stomping is sort of a matchmaking issue, but like really it's like a personal integrity issue and sort of like just like an interpersonal like social issue more than anything. And so what are you actually trying to solve when you like do matchmaking brackets? You're trying to solve like every deck being a 7 basically, and just like trying to break that down a bit more, and I'm not sure how successfully they've actually done that here.
So I just to illustrate how high bracket 3 can get, I just looked up like a CDH Yisan deck, and it would have to cut 3 cards from Mox Diamond, Guy's Cradle, Chrome Mox, Trinisphere, Survival, and Ancient Tomb. I don't think Yisan has any 2-card combos. And it would have to cut 3 of those cards, and then it would technically be a bracket 3 deck.
Yeah. And, like, even that, oh my god. So, part of this as well, I guess we can jump around a bit, because it's our podcast, and we'll jump around like we want to. Part of this has also been, this is a really good thing, I think, actually, which is that Wizards have been sort of integrating this ahead of time, this brackets thing ahead of time, with a bunch of, like, just Magic Online service providers, so stuff like Scryfall, Moxfield, EDH Rec, like, those kinds of resources, which I think is really great. I think they should just be doing that more in a lot of cases. That's awesome that they bring all those people, all those services into the loop ahead of time, get it all figured out, make sure that they're all aligned, and then like have it all go live as part of this, which they did. Big 2 thumbs up. Do that more, Wizards. Do that more for like everything, basically, in my opinion. That being said, a lot of like for example, like for the mid-power decks that I'm talking about, for like that meta that we play in sort of with friends casually, Moxfield ranks all of those decks as bracket 2. They are distinctly not bracket 2 decks. Very much not so. Which is sort of part of the issue here, is that like I don't think there's not quite enough like actual qualifiers on these brackets. And I'm not sure, like, it might just be a thing where it's fine to have this graphic with like the general breakdown, and then like you just go through more of that on some online resource. It still feels a bit messy to me. But a lot of this is like, I guess we can talk about this a bit. Like, the one that stands out to me, or I think stood out to both of us, was the no mass land denial, like, entry point on these is like,
it does feel a little bit like they're living, like, that feels almost like a symptom of living in the past.
Absolutely. That's sort of what it feels like to me, is that like this is a codification of a heuristic from 10 years ago. Maybe not 10 years ago, 5 years ago even, whatever. But like, it's like this, like, okay, we're just like actually going to write this down on paper that the community has been using forever. That's like already started to be out of date, sort of. Because there's nuance to the land denial stuff, right? I don't know. Like,
yeah,
there's like non-basic hate now. There's like what really counts as mass land denial? Yeah, Static Orb and Winter Orb are like, yeah, probably shouldn't play those. Probably shouldn't play Armageddon. But like even then, I don't know.
It's also just like kind of surprising to just put that and then don't put any of the other types of effects that make games miserable. There's like a couple on the Game Changers list. There's Drannith, Tab, Trinisphere on the Game Changers list.
That's pretty much like, it.
There's nothing.
Maybe Grand Arbiter,
about,
I guess, but it's sort of Commander thing.
Oh yeah, Grand Arbiter. Yeah, that feels a bit
like an opposition agent, I guess, but like
an opposition.
Even aside from that, it's like there's still a bunch of stuff out there that feels pretty bad. That like there's like these classes of cards that just feel bad to play against that aren't really mentioned here.
Yeah. So it's like it's kind of a weird thing to just have a hard rule on that and like not even mention anything else feels like a missed opportunity. And this also feels like that feels like maybe because there's only a tiny difference between core and exhibition. So like if you combine those, this feels like something you could put in like to separate low 3 from high 3, where it's like at low 3 there's a bunch of other miserable things that you shouldn't be doing, and then like once you get to high 3 you can start playing like more of those cards. Honestly, they could even just create a second list,
just like the salt list or something.
Not necessarily like the most powerful cards, but like specifically the gameplay, the ones that like prevent your opponents from playing the game, and then say like, hey, you can't play these in 2.5 or whatever. Like,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, even just stuff like again, there's more examples like that kind of stuff. Notion Thief, Narset, Grave Pact, Possessed Portal, etc. That kind of stuff.
Stasis.
Stasis. I guess those technically probably count under mass land denial in Wizards' view, but like, just all that kind of stuff anyway. Or, like
Blood
Insurrection. Blood Moon.
Back to basics. Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
they should have like game changers and game ruiners.
Yeah. Honestly, just ban them, man. Who are they for at this point? They're salty.
Yeah.
Nobody likes playing against them. Like, if we're maintaining this, like, people don't even play this stuff in CDH, right? Like, I don't know. Like, I think we're doing people favors if we ban Armageddon from EDH, because that means that like nobody's gonna fall into the trap of wanting to play those.
Yeah. The other sort of issue I see potentially with this is I feel like the existence of the Game Changers list. I mean, I don't know that it was great, but whatever value the concept of a signpost ban had is gone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because like, if there's something on the list that it's like, oh, you shouldn't play limited resources, or I don't know, like you shouldn't play like Balance because making people sacrifice their lands is kind of rude.
Well, maybe Balance is a bad example for that one, but yeah, there's some
or
other.
Okay,
gross.
like I don't know.
Balance is like an order of magnitude more disgusting than like a bunch of the mana-based stuff. But I understand what you're saying.
Whatever cards were kept out of play or like reduced the frequency they were played by the existence of of the concept of the signpost ban. Like, okay, I guess we'll say the Hull Breacher ban probably signals that like, hey, Narset Wheel or like the Hull Breacher and Leovold bans are a signpost.
Yeah, or
that,
like
you shouldn't be Narset Wheeling people in casual.
Like Golos, Iona.
Yeah.
Like that kind of stuff, right?
Iona's ban, maybe don't play Void Winnower unless your pod is into that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But, like, now people will just be like, well, if those cards are a problem, why aren't they on the Game Changers list?
Exactly. Which I think that's a good sort of transition segue into the next little mini thing that we have on here, which is just talking about the Game Changers in general, but also talking a lot about the unbans that are potentially coming along with this. Obviously, we're still in beta, so I'm not expecting anything big coming out of this, like in the nearest future, but I think once we get close to like a full release on the bracketing system, I think it's pretty reasonable to expect some unbans to come out of it, right? I think
they specifically said they are going to be doing unbans in April.
Yeah, great.
Like with the regular ban announcement. They've also said that most unbanned cards will go on to the Game Changers list, and most banned cards will be put on the game. Like, the Game Changers is
a watch list, sort of.
The watch list is a subset of the Game Changers list.
Yes.
Not everything on the Game Changers list is on the watch list, but anything that is on a watch list will be in Game Changers. Which they said, other than like something like Nadu, where it was like it was printed, it was ridiculous, it was banned.
Yeah,
it wouldn't have had time to go on the Game Changers list. But
for what it's worth, masterful stroke of like just political thinking here, because like basically for ages people have been asking for a watch list for EDH, and the rules committee and now Wizards, I think both probably, have pushed back on it for a long time, being like, no, because this is just going to turn into the effective ban list, or this is just going to turn into like the stuff on here is probably getting banned, just not yet. Like that kind of thing. Like there are a bunch of issues with that. This is a very, very smart tweak on that, which is we have a watch list, but you don't actually get to know it's on the watch list. It's just part of this larger system that's used as like power classic system. It's there is a watch list on there. You just don't get to know what's on it.
There is a watch list, and you get to know all the cards that are on it with some decoys.
Yeah, exactly. Just built-in red herrings. So very funny. But yeah, so I think we wanted to talk a bit, do some perspective, do some thinking about what might be able to come off, where we think stuff's gonna go. Because if we do get, I'm assuming this is gonna be one of the larger batches of unbans we've seen in a while, maybe ever. Maybe not ever. I don't know enough about the history of the ban list to say that, but I think it's reasonable to see relatively large scale changes coming in April.
Your fake news.
Correct. Now listen to me anyway, because that's how the world works now. I talk loudest, so you listen to me now. So, unbans. I think we have a few that we expect. I think here, I'm actually just gonna do like this, because I think this probably makes sense. Okay, we can talk about this. Anyway, I think we have a few that we're expecting to come off. I think Coalition Victory is almost certainly coming off the ban list. Like, oh my god. Can we free that one? Please? Finally? Just like...
But if it's not on the ban list, how will people know that winning the game out of nowhere
they shouldn't be winning the game. Just gross. It's just egregious that one still hangs out. It's just like, because it's like, I don't know, man. It's like, at this point, a fun win condition. It's not even egregious. It's like, at this point of the game, it's like, you're spending 8 mana, you gotta get some type lands into play, especially if you're playing at a budget. Like, that's not particularly trivial. And then, like, if you're playing a 5-mana or 5-color commander, sure, but a lot of the 5-color commanders don't even necessarily have 5 colors of pips, so, like, you're playing a worse 5-color commander if you want to use this as a win con. And it's like, whatever, man. It's like, it's 8 mana, yeah, sure. We have Peer into the Abyss now. Yeah, if you want to spend 8 mana and win the game on the spot, feel free. Be my guest. We have Razaketh even. So much easier to do. Anyway. I think that one's probably
a lot harder to disrupt with like a well-timed removal spell.
Yeah, exactly. Next up, I think the next most likely is almost certainly Recurring Nightmare. It's like, we're so far past Recurring Nightmare being a problem, right? Right.
I mean, so the only reason I think they would keep it banned is just
because it's uninteractable.
No, it's because the reasons it's uninteractable are somewhat arcane and require a good understanding of the rules.
But come on, there's so many problem cards in terms of rulings.
I don't want someone who vaguely understands the rules to have to explain to someone who doesn't understand the rules at all why they can't destroy Recurring Nightmare at FNM.
Which, like, fine, but also, really? That's the bar?
I also
that's the bar that keeps stuff on the ban list.
I also think this is where we could get more value out of squeezing in a tier between core and upgraded, where the lower tier still has 0 game changers, because like it's just really difficult, like in a format with as many tutors as like, because level 3 has no restrictions on tutors and 3 game changers, which means your deck can just be 1 absolutely game warping card, 2 game changer power level tutors to find it, and then 11 more not quite game changer power level tutors, which still includes stuff like Ella Damri's Call, Worldly Tutor, Gamble, like, Grim
Finale, etc.
Finale, to find whatever your disgusting game changing card is. So, like, having something where you say, okay, you're starting to build decks that are better than precons, but you're still not putting in, like, the most unfun effects or the most powerful cards, might make a certain amount of sense.
Yeah, like have like few tutors, 1 game changer, still no combos. Great.
I guess with few tutors, 1 game changer is less of an issue. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Also, sorry, this is one that we should have. I meant to say this during that. I think power level 3 currently, as it exists, should say your commander can't be a game changer.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think the fact that it doesn't explicitly restrict you from just putting Winota in the command zone is egregious.
Kinnan also.
Kinnan as well. Even Yuriko, honestly. I mean, honestly, all of them, I think, that were mentioned, but yeah. You just don't play those in the command zone. And then, the last one here that I think we're expecting to come off, although it might be a bit of a risky prediction, is Primeval Titan. Again, I think we're at a point in the game where the threats are very good. Lands have gotten better. I will not deny that. Since Primeval Titan has been banned, we've gotten stuff like Field of the Dead. Yes, bit of an issue.
Honestly,
but
I could see them adding Field of the Dead to the Game Changers list.
Oh, yeah, I think that's very well worth it. I think that, if you're banning mana base, or, stuff that messes with people's land bases, just put the problematic lands on the Game Changers list. They already have one of them, right? They have Tabernacle. Just put some of the, really annoying proactive ones on there as well. Great. Done. You already have, Tabernacle, Ancient Tomb, and Glacial Chasm. Just throw stuff like that on there as well. But also, I think the justification for Primetime, if I'm remembering correctly, was that the game becomes only about Primetime when it hits the board. Holy shit, how many threats are just like that these days?
Yeah.
Dockside was. Just anything that you're casting for 7 mana, we're not casting, Penumbra Worms or whatever anymore. That's just not what people are doing in EDH these days. People are, when you're spending 8 mana on a permanent spell, especially on a creature spell, oh my, you're getting your money's worth. And, of course everybody else is going to want that sick creature too. Of course.
Yeah, okay, I'm just curious. What are the top creatures in EDH that are 6 mana or more? Is Morophon, astoundingly. I guess that's just... Oh, it's because it's 5
Command zone.
It's Avenger of Zendikar, Itali, Zakama, Hullbreaker Horror...
Rampaging Bayless, Crater Hoof, Consecrated Sphinx. Yeah, what are we doing here, man? What? Yeah, when a Tali resolves, the game doesn't just immediately become only about a Tali? Come on.
Yeah. So, I think... Also, I can see the argument that, Primetime is not in the top 5 of cards that should come off the ban list from a power level perspective. However, it's a card that people have been screaming for a decade.
People, it's sick. People want to cast Primetime. I want to put Primetimes into play. That's something that, in the fun, you get to play with all the bombs of, Limited Pass and whatever. Primetime is, top of the list, man. Of course I want to put sick-ass lands that I put in my deck into play and do it every turn.
So I feel like it'll be unbanned just because people will riot if it's not.
Yeah. And then the stuff that maybe isn't expected, but we might want off. Morgan, I'll let you take head on these because.
I mean, okay, I don't know that I desire all of these off. I think
that's fair.
I think
Gifson
Given is going to come off.
Yeah,
I just don't think you can especially with the combo, where you have this nod to not using it for combos in low power level, it becomes less of an issue, and then you're not playing it against precons. So I think that's pretty likely.
It also was one of the issues previously that you could use it to tutor for Unburial Rites and a creature. Was that one of the arguments?
I don't know if that was specifically an argument. I think the flexibility of not having to find that many cards and guaranteeing to bin stuff was cited as a reason. I don't know if that was specifically on Burial Rites or just this is an instant speed double and tomb is also a little spooky. But yeah, it's just not I don't really know how you justify keeping it in a format where so many tutors are legal, keeping it on the ban list when you have a little bit more insulation from using it to combo, which is the thing that really separates it from other. I mean, Final Parting is legal, but yeah. I think it's coming.
That's where I was getting. Yeah, so like we have like functional versions of this effect for a lot of its different modes. It's just the modularity that's the thing. But like, is the modularity the reason why it's on the ban list? No. Anyway.
Yeah, this was moved to Desire. This was we were discussing this. I don't actually think it's going to be unbanned. Prophet of Prufix, and I don't want it to be unbanned. I think if it's there's like the accelerationist in me wants it unbanned because I think unbanning it
absolutely
would illustrate exactly why level 3 having no restrictions on tutors and 3 game changers is such a problem. Because we'll go back to, like, I remember before this was banned, every single blue-green X deck was like Hidden Commander Prophet. And then you had some commander that took advantage of it somehow in some sort of way. And you were playing like
a mana sink
stuff,
needs to tap
value.
To do something.
It honestly didn't even have to be a mana sink. Like,
yeah, just draw cards, is a mana sink, has a tap ability. Any of the above. That describes basically 75% of the Civic commander base.
Yeah, so like I think that would be the perfect illustration of like why I think level 3 is like kind of poorly thought out at the moment. But I think they will realize that is exactly what will happen because like that's exactly what happened while it was legal. And I think it'll stay banned. And then the last one is Emrakul. Like, again, this is just one of those. I could see how when the 6 and 7 mana creatures and 8 mana creatures people were casting sucked. Emrakul was just like kind of unbeatable, but like especially with a lot of this fast mana on the Game Changers list. If you let your opponent get to 15 mana, cast an Emrakul, and then hit you with it twice, you deserve to lose. Like,
I sort of get it as like an argument for it's hard to stop people from land grabbing. Like, that's just an accepted part of the format, and Emrakul ends the game too boringly, but, like, even 15? Does it?
First of all, it doesn't.
It's just, like it doesn't. It doesn't do commander damage. 15's a lot of damage, but it's not going to one-tap you. And also, 6 permanents really isn't that much by the time that somebody's casting an Emrakul.
Yeah, if you're...
I'm sorry,
like, assuming
it feels bad. It
quote-unquote
it feels
fairly
bad, but it's like a Plague Wind. Probably not even. Like, if you, like, you know, you cast your Avenger of Zendikar or whatever, do a bit of building up, you have your, like, 8 saplings or whatever, and then somebody goes, okay, Emrakul hit you. You're like, alright, I guess I have to sack my saplings. You removed half my Avenger.
Yeah,
cool.
Like, I think the only problem is, like, when it's being cast on, like, turn 6 or 7 off of, like, oh, I played, like, artifact ramp into, like, keys and chromatic orrery and whatever.
Yeah.
And I think Ancient Tomb, Chrome Mox, Grim Monolith, Mana Vault, and Mox Diamond all being on the Game Changers list makes that, like, much
way less likely. Yeah, for sure. And then, for the final little bit of talking about bans and such, what are we not expecting? Morgan, what are you not expecting?
I am not expecting them to I'm certainly not expecting them to wholesale reverse the bans from September.
Previous ones, yeah.
I could see them unbanning exactly Nadu.
That's actually sort of interesting because I think I think it might be on the other side. I think they're not going to unban Nadu. I think it's like too much of an issue, especially if they're not unbanning Prophet of Prufix. I might see them unbanning Mana Crypt and adding it to Game Changers immediately.
That I see. The thing is that, like, I don't think the Nadu ban, like, the problem is that unbanning Dockside, Jewel Lotus, or Mana Crypt will be perceived by the community as a repudiation of the RC in a way that unbanning Nadu won't.
Sure.
Like, no one was attached to Nadu because it didn't survive a ban cycle.
In which case, I think they just won't. I think the obvious solution
I'm not
is just
saying,
to
I'm not
not
saying it's
walk
like
back.
likely, but I'm saying like I wouldn't be shocked because I actually do think if this system had existed at the time, that's where it should have wound up, because it's like you can't combo with it in tier 3 easily, because like those combos are just way too easy to assemble. So like you're either just using it as like a protection value piece, or maybe like casting spells, like you have like a heroic type deck where you cast spells to draw a bunch of cards in tier 3, and then it's comboing in 4 and 5, and like that's actually fine.
Right.
And people playing precons never have to encounter it. But it won't shock me if they just leave it banned. This isn't like an expectation. This is like
I think it's also I think like probably the RC was very resistant to unbans. I think WotC is less resistant to unbans, but still pretty resistant to unbans. Just like this is a broad scale thing. Maybe the format team isn't. Maybe it's a different format team for this, but like
I feel like using this transition as like a let's play around with things, like unban a lot of stuff, even if some of it ends up being banned.
Let's clean house again, and like let's get a bit of a fresh start on this.
Yeah.
Also, because I guess they do have incentive for it as well, because now they have a full monopoly on the format, so they just get to be like, okay, we could set up a sick like precon printing with prime time in it, and then unban it, and then put that out, right?
True. Stonks.
You're not thinking about the money to be made off of the format changes.
You're right, I wasn't.
Yeah, I don't want to have to think about it, but I think it's just going to be something that has to sit back of mind.
Though, like, are we pretending if they'd wanted to do that, they couldn't have done that with the art?
No, absolutely not. They absolutely could have done it. It's just, like, a lot easier now. They can do it all in-house. Yeah.
They can use, like, Slack instead of an email.
Correct. Microsoft Teams, please. I don't think WotC has touched a good piece of software in their entire life. Cool. So, what are our final thoughts on it?
I mean, I'm just waiting. This is the beta edition. I'm waiting for the Sigma edition. So I hope that like. I hope that my perception, it might be wishful thinking, is right, that some of these are formalized and some of them aren't, and we're gonna see some, like, bigger changes than you might... Like, I hope they do more than just tweak this system.
Yeah.
And, like, they were throwing this out deliberately underbaked to get the feedback on what direction people want it tweaked, or, like, want it changed, as opposed to, like, we think this is about where it's going to wind up, but, like, we could nudge it a little bit one way or the other, because I think there's a lot of room to improve here in, like, honestly pretty uncontroversial ways. Like, I think some of the things that we've suggested would probably make people upset, but I think a lot of them actually wouldn't. And so I hope they're sort of hoping to, like, solicit larger scale feedback.
Yeah.
I guess also there's I'll pay lip service to. It is interesting that they have put CEDH in its own bracket.
Yeah.
And, like, put it in a bracket. I don't know if that means they're planning to do anything. A multiplayer MTR, an IPG would be cool, or like a supplement.
Could be neat. Would be nice.
And like this is certainly the most formal any acknowledgement of CEDH has been. But it could also just be like, I mean, it could also be sort of our own, like, messaging not working against us, but, like, pushing them to do this, where we've said, like, CEDH is a thing where it's only CEDH if you're playing against other people who are expecting to play CEDH, and we don't want a pub stomp, and so like just we've like banged that drum so much that they're like, this is a separate thing from the highest powers of CDH, even though from a matchmaking perspective it's not. It's like a attitude thing, which they specifically call out in their description. So it could just be that, but it could also be that they're planning on doing a little bit more
work,
formal stuff with it. Maybe hosting tournaments, maybe creating some documents.
Yeah, I'm not holding out hope that they're gonna start hosting tournaments, because like, are they even hosting tournaments for the formats they do support?
Or like pushing Magic Fests like, to have tournaments.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think my general opinion of this is that I think, like, first of all, brackets, broad level, really good idea. I think just like actually hammering out a sort of shared evaluation system, even if it's rough, I think it's a really good thing to get going on, and probably should have been put together like just over a decade ago at this point. Just as soon as like people started playing with strangers, this is something that needed to be hammered out. So better late than never. Good stuff, Wizards. Yeah, I definitely agree that I think it'll, if this is a true early beta that's open to a relatively large degree of change, I think this is going to be a pretty good thing. And I think that generally the things that the community wants are going to be relatively consistent and pretty easy to implement, ? We'll see. But yeah, I think this is a fine first step, needs a lot of refinement.
Yeah, I'm hoping this is like what a beta is supposed to be, as opposed to like, we're mostly done and we want you to access our game while we work out the last few bugs and finish it up.
Yeah,
betas have become in the last few years.
Yeah, if it's a true beta, this is good. If it's a AAA video game beta, this is really bad. Cool.
And just to be clear, if you want to give feedback, figure out who the appropriate people to do that to are, and do it in a polite and constructive way. Don't go shrieking in people's DMs or spam adding them on Twitter, or like, just, we can be cool, be chill.
Yeah.
That again.
Civil.
I don't think
think through your arguments.
I think our audience are not the people who need to hear that message.
I would hope not.
It needs to be said.
All right. That about wraps it up for this episode. If you'd like to reach out to us with any questions, comments, or concerns, you can contact us. Actually, can you contact us on Twitter? Probably not. We'll see. Via our email, for sure. Don't. Via our email, absolutely. At intothenorthpodcast@gmail.com, or on our Discord server, for which the invite link is in the description for this episode. An extra special thanks for all of our patrons who help cover the expenses for our show and allow us to work toward improving the quality of the podcast. If you too would like to become a patron, we're at patreon.com/intothenorthpodcast. Thank you, as always, to the band Vox Cadre for our lovely podcast music, and to Nate Slover, messed that one up. Nate Slover for our equally lovely podcast logo. Next episode will be out in a month. Got that one. Until then, see ya.